Hello, welcome to Hot Ones. This is the show with hot questions and even hotter wings. Today I'm joined by Blain Masterson, an Ethnic Studies 201 student. We're going to be talking about some U.S. history today. How are you with hot food?
I ate Carolina Reapers for breakfast. This will not be a problem.
Perfect. Now let's get started.
All right.
Okay, so explain the concept of Sambo. What did slave owners think of them? Take your time.
I plan to. Yeah, so the Sambo, basically that was slave owners trying to make their slaves passive, and I mean they figured that through passivity that was the best way that they could control their slaves, and just keeping them idle-minded and keeping them busy in the fields, ended up that the slaves weren't so much Sambos, and that we saw that in Bacon's Rebellion and things like that when the slaves revolted. The Sambo arguably didn't exist for a long time, just because they weren't as idle-minded and simple as the slave owners thought they were.
That's a little messed up.
Yeah, quite a bit messed up.
All right, then let's move on. If you're ready.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Okay, so minority groups historically have fought fiercely for our country. It doesn't make much sense to me.
First of all, these wings are horrible. Yeah, throughout history, we've treated our minority groups pretty bad. But you look at, the Japanese regiment, the 442nd Regiment, most decorated regiment in U.S. military history. Native Americans have the most medals of honor from World War II. It doesn't make much sense to me why people that we've so marginalized are able to pull it together and fight for our country. But they see it as their duty and their way as expressing themselves as American citizens, even if they don't have voting rights or housing rights or only considered American citizens unless they fight. I mean, even the Japanese in the internment camps fought, which is kind of crazy once you think about it.
That is pretty insane. Okay, you ready to move on?
I'm getting there.
Okay. So you had the opportunity to meet Greg Deal recently. How important are people like him as champions and voices for racial tolerance and change?
Yeah, Greg was a cool guy. I know we got the opportunity to watch some of his stuff earlier in the semester. As kind of an expressive artist and somewhat rebellious, he's a pretty big voice for and a big champion for Native American rights. And I think that's sort of important for, especially the youth to be able to see and look up to someone that is changing things so well. He's not really an active political guy. He takes political stances, but he doesn't do it in a real in-your-face way. For example, he completely changed my mind on the whole, Native Americans in sports logos train of thought. He was really against it. I was really for it, and after we got to hear him speak, that really changed my mind. So yeah, guys like Greg Deal and people like him going forward are going to be essential for not only keeping stories of the past alive, but hopefully changing the future for the better.
Completely agree. So, you're of Irish descent. After reading about the real history of Irish settlement in America, how do you view your ancestry?
Yeah, that one took me some time to wrap my head around. I always thought the Irish just came over because of potato famine or whatever, and really had an easy time in America, but that wasn't the case. It was interesting to see how they came over and they were given the jobs that slave owners didn't want their slaves to do. They were given the factory work that wasn't even given to minority groups at the time just because they were so dispensable. But they worked hard, and no doubt them having white skin definitely helped them have a leg up over the Chinese and over the Japanese and Native Americans and African Americans during the Great Migration. But yeah, even hearing about, they would cut off the heads of the Irish and put them in steaks and stuff in camps, that's pretty wild. I didn't know about that. So looking back at my ancestry now, coming directly from Ireland during the potato famine, I think it's pretty cool that they were able to advance so far. I'm in college now. Both my parents went to college, and if you'd have told my ancestors that, however many years ago, they probably wouldn't have thought that was ever going to happen, but here we are.
Inspiring stuff. How you holding up so far?
Getting warm.
All right. Ready to move on? What was the deal with Freedom Summer? Sounds like it sort of sucked.
Yeah, it really did. Freedom Summer was also called the Missouri Summer Project, or the Mississippi Summer Project. It was just an idea during the Civil Rights Movement where African Americans tried to get as many people registered to vote as they could. What's interesting about it is Mississippi at the time didn't even have the Klan. The Ku Klux Klan didn't even exist on there because there was no opposition to them. I mean, it was understood that blacks existed in the margins of society and they weren't going to vote because their voices weren't heard. What was interesting also about Freedom Summer was you had privileged white kids from northern colleges taking their summers and going down to Mississippi to petition with the blacks. And a lot of this was done just through straight canvassing, so going and knocking on people's doors. It was a really it was really intense. It was really sort of boots on the ground and old school, but that's the only means that they had. That's also arguably the first time that whites and blacks have come together and fought for something that big, political change in the South, whites and blacks working together. And they even died together when you saw the two white kids dying with the black student on their way during a canvassing operation. So that was pretty cool to see. Definitely opened some eyes, if anything.
Yeah, that's pretty great. All right, start. I get pretty hot. You ready?
This one smells gross.
Explain the concept of libidinous races and English tyranny over blacks and natives early in American history.
I was right, that one was gross. Yeah, so the English were sort of Freudian. They were completely obsessed with sex and control over your libido. They viewed and classified blacks and Native Americans initially when they got here as libidinous and unable to control their libido. And there was a fear that since they deviated from God, that they were truly a devil race, and terms like, demon, Satan, savages sort of originated from that term. A lot of it arguably was because the English had very little control over their own sexuality and were sort of projecting their insecurities onto the people of Native and African descent. Somehow that makes sense. The English were kind of a weird group of people back then, so when they weren't killing Native Americans and blacks, they were definitely assuming that all they did was run around and act to their inner desires with no whim.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
Very.
So now it's time for the last stab. We call it the last stab because it's tradition around here to put a little extra on the last wing. You don't have to if you don't want to.
I'm all in at this point. This stuff actually smells really gross.
There you go. Just a little. Oh,
okay.
Wait, are you sure?
Yeah, we're just gonna go with it. We're just gonna spread it out a little bit.
Okay.
You're gonna have to give me an extra second on this one.
Okay. You take your time.
If you guys actually watch Hot Ones, this is the real stuff from the show.
It's gonna be bad.
This is gonna be really bad.
It's gonna be bad.
I'm already sweating.
Woo. Dude, I had a drop of that. Okay. Okay.
All right. You better ask Blackness will talk.
Okay. Why are classes like these important?
Wow. Classes like these are really important. I sort of took this class because it fit into my schedule. But this book, I mean, it's not biased. I mean, like you opened up with in the beginning of the class, it's not a biased class. It's just presentation of facts, and it's a way to keep history alive. keeping history alive is the only way that we can keep history from repeating itself. So classes like these and the introduction of primary resources as a way to study the past is really going to be important going forward. It's so easy now with the technology that we have. Oh my God. It's so easy now with the technology that we have to sort of just skim over what editors decide they want us to read. So books like Ronald Takaki's A Different Mirror and other works and primary resources that we've seen over the semester really keep things front and center and show us that we haven't had a great past in American history. There's a lot of hope going forward. We just have to keep everything front and center. Oh,
Well, congratulations! You beat the wings of death. How do you feel?
I feel horrible. I feel really, really bad. Those wings were bad. The hot sauce is bad.
Well,
I appreciate you having me on the show.
I appreciate you coming.
Oh,
That's